Hey people, what's going on? So as you can see, this is Ben Shapiro from The Ben Shapiro Show. And I wanted to see what he was saying about the Fani Willis indictment and the Trump case. Now, the reason why I think it was important to listen to what Ben says is that he actually predicted that RICO should be used 10 years ago to go after politicians in an organized crime capacity. So now that they've essentially charged Trump in an organized crime capacity under RICO, I want to see how he feels about the whole thing. So let's take a look. And I love the name of the video. You won't believe what I predicted 10 years ago. Well, I believe it because I saw the clip.
Two things can be true at once. Donald Trump pretty obviously violated classified document statutes. They have him basically dead to rights on those charges. I mean, he literally said on tape, folks, legal advice, never do the criming on tape. He literally said on a tape, here are classified documents. I could have unclassified them. I didn't declassify them. You should look at them, right? I mean, that is doing the crime on the tape.
All right. Now, I was wondering why this video only had like 48,000 views, because he's got 6 million. I think that's the reason why, because, a lot of times, I'm sorry, people, you guys just don't want to hear the truth. Let's hear that tape, because if he say, when someone cites something, I like to bring it up to see, okay, let's cite. So let's look at the Trump tape.
These are bad, sick people.
That was your coup, against you.
Well, it started right at the beginning.
Like when Milley's talking about, you were going to try to do a coup. No, they were trying to do that before you even were sworn in. That's right. Trying to overthrow your election.
Well, with Milley, let me see that. I'll show you an example. He said that I wanted to attack Iran. Isn't it amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up. Look. This was him. They presented me this. This is off the record, but they presented me this. This was him. This was the Defense Department and him. Wow. We looked at some. This was him. This wasn't done by me. This was him. All sorts of stuff. It's pages long. Look. Wait a minute, let's see here.
Yeah.
I just found, isn't that amazing? This totally wins my case,
Mm-hmm.
Except it is like highly confidential, secret. This is secret information. But look at this. You attack, and
Hillary would print that out all the time,
she'd send it to Anthony Weiner, the pervert. By the way, isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
I was just saying, because we were talking about it. And, he said he wanted to attack Iran and what? These are the papers. This was done by the military, given to me. I think we can probably, right?
I don't know. We'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to try to figure out
See, as president, I could have declassified.
Yeah.
Now I can't, but this is classified.
Now we have a problem.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It's so cool. I mean, it's so. Look, here I have. And you probably almost didn't believe me, but now you believe me.
No, I believe
it's incredible, right?
No,
hey, bring some Cokes in, please.
After hearing it, Trump's defense, let's just remind people what Trump's defense was. He said, I declassified it all, and I can declassify anything as president. Facts. True. He's on tape saying, this is not declassified. This is secret. And I could have declassified, I don't know why he said that part. I could have declassified it as president, but he didn't. Looks like Shapiro's got a point. I see why not a lot of people watch this, because a lot of people who watch happen to be hardcore on the right, but that tape is not good. That tape is not good. That tape makes the government's case. Remember, if his defense, which it was, which we all know what it was, let's not pretend, his defense was clearly, I declassified it, so I can't get in trouble for sharing classified documents. That conversation pretty much says he didn't declassify it and he was sharing classified documents. I think you got to be fair with the facts.
So, should he be prosecuted or not? Well, in any normal circumstance, the answer would be yes, sure, why not? Of course, if you commit a crime, you should be prosecuted for the crime. The problem is, once James Comey let Hillary Clinton off the hook for crimes, at that point, the answer becomes no.
I do think Hillary Clinton should have been definitely prosecuted. Like she, you know, this whole no reasonable prosecutor. You got her sharing classified information. You had it all, right? No, I think no reasonable prosecutor to let her go, but it is what it is.
And the answer becomes no, because if only one side has to play by the rules, then the rules are not rules. They are just a double standard. They are just a weapon. And the same thing is happening right here. So back in 2014, I actually advocated for a full-scale use of RICO to go after politicians. Because I said, listen, what I would like is actually widespread use of RICO to go after various criminal enterprises run by politicians. I wrote an entire book called The People versus Barack Obama, in which I suggested that Barack Obama had very likely engaged in, by Fannie Willis's definition, RICO violations. Take, for example, the IRS scandal. The IRS scandal, Barack Obama and his minions went out in public and repeatedly said that it would be amazing if the IRS audited and removed the tax exemption for pretty much every conservative group in America leading up to the 2010 election. And then they actually went and they did it. Right? Then the IRS went and did it. And he said, well, I never meant for them to do it. Well, I mean, again, that looks very much like the sort of mafioso activity RICO was meant to stop in the first place.
That's true. That's true. Where the top guy says, you know, hey, I wish that guy would disappear. Then the guy disappears. That's kind of what RICO was for, right? You know, even though that guy was killed, he was killed in further into the criminal organization. So he's got a good point. And I think the drone attacks, like my issue with Obama was ordering drone attacks on Americans in foreign countries. No due process. That's a little much. That's much. Yeah, I think that might be criminal. But if those Americans are enemy combatants, it's the same thing. So I don't know. But I do get his point though. The IRS thing was stunk. Yeah, it was horrible. They played the game.
This argument back in 2014, the entire press that reviewed the book said this is crazy. You could never do this. How could you possibly suggest something like this? And my answer was, you know what? Maybe if we finally started holding politicians accountable for their various criminal enterprises, they would stop doing the criming. But the problem is this: they ignored Barack Obama, and then they ignored Hillary Clinton. And they're currently ignoring Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. By the way, very solid case that the sort of RICO violations that we are currently talking about with regards to Donald Trump and election of 2020, those far better fit the criminal violations committed by Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. You also talk about
I think the Hunter Biden and Joe Biden thing is a bomb. And I think they're trying to just hold off until after the election, and hopefully if Joe Biden wins, pardons all around. But that's going to be interesting. But I think pardons all around after if Joe Biden wins. But it's tough because he's 80 years old. You're hoping an 84-year-old make it to 84. 80-year-old makes it to 84, which is going to be tough.
A criminal enterprise. You want to talk like a RICO criminal enterprise, like a family. Let's say that you had a family, literally, like an actual honest to God family, not like a mafia family, a family. Now the mafia families start off as families. Yeah. Let's say you had a family, and that family sent a bagman to foreign countries to pick up cash on behalf of every relative of the vice president of the United States while the vice president was presiding over foreign policy in those countries. I mean, does the plausible deniability there sound sort of like a mafia
It does.
situation?
He's right.
When Joe Biden was literally calling into Hunter Biden's business meetings and saying, how is the weather over there? Doesn't that sound exactly like what a mafioso would do?
That does sound like it. I think he's right. I think even if you disagree or agree with the whole Trump stuff, you got to agree. Biden stuff looks just as bad. It does. It looks just as bad.
You get the Don on the line and tell the local bartender, how's the weather down there? And then everybody knows pretty clearly that if the bartender doesn't pay off the mafioso, then the place goes up in flames. I mean, that looks a lot like a RICO violation. I mean, if you're going to talk about RICO violations, you can find RICO violations pretty much anywhere. And you know what? I'd be kind of okay with that if this were even remotely evenly applied. But it is not remotely evenly applied. It is only applied to Donald Trump. Only. So again, if you want to have a set of rules that applies to everybody evenly, I'm totally for it. But if the rules only apply to Donald Trump, we can all see what you're doing. Well, they're going to get their wish. The rules will be applied to everyone, but not evenly in fully partisan fashion. So there's a clip going around of me in 2014 talking about the book that I mentioned, The People versus Barack Obama. Here's what I had to say at the time about the use of RICO to go after politicians.
I'm not sure we could indict Washington, but I think that certainly...
I'm sure something was done.
Washington was relatively clean, but if you look at George W. Bush, or if you looked at Bill Clinton, or if you looked at Ronald Reagan, sure. I mean, the answer would be that you could, and people should be wary. I mean, this is sort of the case that I'm making, is that we've become so comfortable with the executive branch of the government abusing its citizens and violating our rights and violating what they're structured to do under the law, that we've just become used to it. And if we start treating them as criminals, maybe they'll think twice before they act so criminally in the future.
Okay, notice what I say in that clip. In that clip, I say that you could theoretically apply these sorts of legal violations to any president, right? I'm talking about George W. Bush and Ronald Reagan, both Republicans, and Bill Clinton, a Democrat, right? I'm talking about pretty much every president back in 2014, including Barack Obama. And the point that I'm making is if you evenly apply the law, okay. But guess what's happened? No remote even application of the law.
I agree with Ben. I agree. I think he's right. I think the issue here is not the law itself, but the application of the law to the facts, right? And in one instance, you have, I think, plausible facts that lead you to the same conclusion, but you don't like with Hillary Clinton. And then on the other side, you have plausible facts that lead you to the conclusion, but you do something about it. So it does make that the law not being equally applied to both sides, or even the perceptions not evenly applied to both sides, makes it seem like the law is invalid in of itself. But I am kind of surprised because from what I'm hearing, I think he thinks the RICO investigation and charges are valid. He's obviously thinks the documents case. I'm not sure what he thinks about the New York case and January 6th case, but I think those two cases for sure. I think he thinks Trump is dead to rights on the documents case. So I don't know. I agree with Ben, and I see why this video didn't do well, because I think a lot of his right-leaning audience probably saw this and was like, this is not what you want to hear, right? But based on the facts and evidence presented, I can't disagree with the whole Trump documents case thing. I just can't. If you listen to that audio is damning stuff. I can't. I can't just pretend that doesn't exist. And I also agree with Ben that RICO is so expansive, because I know in Georgia they expanded their RICO, where it's now so expansive that you can get anybody for essentially anything. And there were Republicans who did that. Now, as you can see here, the Georgia RICO statute was actually expanded from the traditional RICO charges. So what I mean by RICO charges is that RICO was really just was a set of crimes that fell under RICO, murder, that type of stuff, selling drugs, blah, blah, blah. But the good people in Georgia expanded RICO to include things like types of fraud, theft, computer crimes, and essentially by expanding it to be so broad, this allowed them to charge Trump with RICO, because under the old RICO statute, Trump wouldn't have been able to be charged under that statute because he hadn't committed one of the RICO qualifying crimes. But now, since Georgia decided to expand RICO to things like fraud, theft, and computer crimes, well, guess what? That now gets everybody charged into RICO, and that's what they're essentially saying with Trump. The Trump campaign, which is the corrupt organization, they defrauded, or they attempted to defraud the government in choosing fake electors and things of that nature. So, I'm not sure if it's going to be successful, but that's how RICO's kind of got Trump caught up with this. And I think that's what Ben Shapiro, he knows, and it seems like he's saying this is the appropriate charge for that particular case. Now, before I get out of here, I do want to say one thing. I don't know. And I think a lot of us legal commentators are afraid to say those three words. I don't know. I've never prosecuted a RICO case. I've never looked at the RICO laws in Georgia. I looked at the indictment from Trump, and I personally don't know. And I think that's okay to say, right? That's okay to say. Your knowledge on RICO may be as good as my knowledge on RICO when it comes to the Georgia case. I understand that there are some people who are going to say, RICO, it doesn't make sense. They've never read the RICO statute. They probably didn't even read the indictment. I had one guy who tried to argue with me who read nothing about it, right? Who read absolutely nothing about the case and just told me it was all junk. And if you haven't at least read it or tried to understand it, then how can you say it's junk? I've read it, and it's hard for me to understand. So, is the RICO stuff good or not good? Well, if you allow fraud and stuff and you're saying it's fraud, it looks like you have enough to maybe go to trial, but do you have enough to win? I just don't know. I don't know. And my concern is like when it comes to Ben, well, if you're going to now pull out RICO for these minor crimes and for these frauds and things of that nature, then you just have to do it both ways. You can't just, kind of specialize on one side when you don't like the political message and then let the other side go. So I do agree with Ben. But again, let me know in the comment section how you feel, because I think at the end of the day, this is about having the law applied fairly. And I'd also like to hear what you guys think about Ben's take on this, because looking at the view count, it doesn't look like too many people appreciate his take. It looks like a lot of people don't like his take because he averages something like 100,000 views a video. This one only got 48,000, and he's got 6 million subscribers. So I think that shows that sometimes people don't want to hear negative news about who they like, but I think Ben is being honest and just saying, hey, this is how I feel about the situation, and facts don't care about your feelings. So let me know how you feel in the comment section. My name is Nate the Lawyer, and I'm out of here. Peace.